Hey, I have an idea! Why don't we make an episode of Veggie Tales that adults will love?
Yeah, but they've been loving a lot of our older episodes too. How are we gonna top that?
Well, I think that maybe we should make an episode that's all about things that only they would know, and that kids would scratch their heads going, huh? Upon seeing it.
And what, pray tell, did you have in mind?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. We could talk about old literature, stuff written by, say, Gilbert and Sullivan, and William Shakespeare.
Oh, I love the sound of that.
Do you really think that they're gonna go for it?
Well, of course they will. It's Veggie Tales. They'll go for anything we do. Well, that is, unless it stars a princess, or a pop star, or a beat, or any of these other things that you see on screen. But hey, I don't think we'll get to those for another decade, so we're home free.
That's how I'd like to imagine the production meeting for Lyle the Kindly Viking went. It's no secret that I grew up on Veggie Tales, and to be honest, I still do today. For two reasons. One, it helps me practice when coming up with my own Christian children's show, which is actually in production right now. And two, it's just genuinely a good show, and I hope to show my kids it someday. There's been one episode of Veggie Tales where ever since I first saw it as a kid, I knew it was something special. It was an episode that was very different from the others, but for some reason, I couldn't put my finger on exactly why. But now that I've grown up, I've definitely figured it out. And let me tell you, this is why it's my second favorite episode of the entire show. My first favorite's Little Joe, and hey, maybe we'll get to that someday, but for right now, we're talking about why I love Lyle the Kindly Viking. This video is brought to you by our Patreon raffle winner of the month, Leaf Razor. If you would like your idea for a Media Mementos review to become a reality, consider donating to our Patreon, which has a link in the description below. Go on, check it out. I'll wait for you, but only if you pause this video. You done? Good. So, Lyle the Kindly Viking has something very strange about it. In case you couldn't tell from the very strange intro of this video, it's all about classical literature. And me, being a big fan of that stuff, finds it absolutely hilarious. First of all, the kids will have absolutely no idea what any of this stuff is. I mean, when I was a 7-year-old, I had no idea what Hamlet or the Pirates of Penzance were. Heck, I didn't even know that Classy Songs with Larry was actually a parody of a song. I thought it was just something totally bizarre and original. This is what I can call the parental bonus episode. This is one that I think that a lot of adults will really like. You know why that's important? Because a lot of the times, adults have to watch these shows with their kids. Yeah, trust me, my aunt and uncle who've got like 17 kids, and that's barely an exaggeration, they watch little kid shows with their young children all the time, and let me tell you, they hate some of that crap that's on TV, like Peppa Pig or Bubble Guppies. They can't stand it. That's why a lot of these children's shows will throw in jokes or references that adults will like, because hey, if they're gonna be sitting there on the couch watching it with their kid, you may as well give them something to entertain themselves, otherwise they're gonna be looking for the nearest bottle of Jack Daniels. And that's exactly what's going on in Lyle the Kindly Viking. There are so many references to classic media that goes way over kids' heads, but it's still done in a way that even they'll find it funny. For example, the battleship bit with to be or not to be. They probably won't know what that's referencing, but adults sure will. Either way, it's still pretty funny. Or Mr. Lunt dressing in drag. I found that really funny as a kid, and now knowing the reasoning behind it, I find it extra hilarious. But I will say, that's not the main reason why I love Lyle the Kindly Viking. That's actually the secondary reason. The main reason why I love this episode is because of how mature it is. Technically speaking, my last point falls into this argument, but it goes on a bit further than that. See, before Veggie Tales became kinda corporate and more secular, they had this big reputation of taking many different lessons and then teaching them through multiple angles. For example, in the very first episode, Where's God When I'm Scared, we learned that not only is God bigger than any monster, boogeyman, or Andrew Johnson that's out there to get you, but also, he's never gonna abandon you when you're scared. So even when things seem bleak or dark, he's always gonna be there to stand right by your side and protect you from whatever eviltons are out there. But when they didn't have 2-episode segments, what they did instead was go a little bit deeper into the lesson in one particular area. For example, in Larry Boy and the Fib from Outer Space, we not only learn that lies are wrong because it's better to tell the truth, but also that lies lead to more lies, which leads to more lies, and then that just leads to destruction. If you want to get trust from people, and if you want to have a good future, you'd better tell the truth. And judging by that lesson, I think that this is an episode that a lot of the members of the US government kinda decided to skip. Where does Lyle the Kindly Viking fit into all this? Well, it's actually got the most mature approach to a lesson, mostly because the lesson it teaches is unbelievably juvenile. This being the lesson of sharing. This is the kind of thing that, say, Caillou would teach. It's the most basic, boring, regular lesson you can teach in any children's show ever. So of course Veggie Tales had to do it. I mean, they already did Don't Lie, Be Nice to People, Buy an Entire Chocolate Factory with No Money Down. You know, the basic lessons. But the crew at Big Idea went above and beyond with this one. They teach the lesson of sharing not only through multiple aspects, but also in a very down-to-earth and straightforward way. The things God wants us to do for others usually makes us feel good too. If we've got goods or talents, we may as well share them because that's what's gonna make other people happy and make their lives better, and plus, God's gonna smile down on us. Additionally, sharing's gonna help get you more friends. Stuff may be cool and all, but it's not gonna be nearly as fun when you're using it all by yourself. If you don't share, you don't get friends. And that's basically how they teach it, almost word for word. They don't sugarcoat it. They don't add some wacky shenanigans to intermix between the lesson segments because, oh, we're having the educational moments, kids can't focus when there's edumacation about. One of my biggest pet peeves ever is children's shows that treat kids like absolute morons. I mentioned Peppa Pig earlier, but trust me, there's a lot more than that. I hate it because when I watched those as a kid, I felt like an idiot. Is this really how adults saw me? If this is how adults see me, should I really voice my opinion? Do I really have unique inputs or an input that even matters? That kind of stuff. You know, a lot of people don't really realize it, but that can do a lot of damage to kids. If you treat them like equals and get down on their level, they'll not only be able to have a better view of themselves or, hey, maybe even develop to be better people, but they'll also learn more. Let me put it this way. When you were in school, what did you learn better from? A teacher that actually took the time to teach it the lesson, made sure you understood it, and didn't talk down to you? Was it the teacher with clown makeup and a giant neckbeard who constantly talked about wacky things he did on the weekend? Or the busybody nosy teacher who looked down at you all the time and yelled at you when you didn't get things right? I think it was the third one, right? No, it was the first. And that's something that a lot of kids' shows don't really have. Not even just Christian children's shows, just children's shows in general. The people behind them seem to forget what it was like being a kid and how important it was to expose yourself to positive things. Things that made you feel good and also learn along the way. Veggie Tales did exactly that, especially here in Lyle the Kindly Viking. Even with all the references kids wouldn't get, there's still tons of things that they'd smile at, like the songs and the quirky randomness that Larry has, and also the lesson not treating them like idiots. Speaking of the songs, let's talk about those. This has my absolute favorite silly song of all time in it, mostly just because of how strange it is. It's still silly and quirky, but it tries to take itself so seriously to a comedic degree. Plus, it has that scallion meme, so hey, can't go wrong there. Then there's Look Olaf, which is really silly and catchy. Terrors of the Sea is low-key kind of an earworm for me. And then the rest are all great too. I mean, I'm not the best at talking about music, which is why music is basically the only media we don't cover here on Media Mementos. But let me just tell you, it's good. And if you're an adult who wants to reminisce, or hey, if you're even just looking for some fun kids songs, then go turn off that Backyardigans CD and turn on the soundtrack for Lyle the Kindly Viking. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend. There's one more reason why I love Lyle the Kindly Viking, but it's kind of a selfish reason. You see, around this time Big Idea was going through some issues. The Jonah movie was getting made and that was having a very turbulent production cycle, and shortly after that movie would be released, Big Idea would have to file bankruptcy because, well, Jonah didn't do well, Cartoon Adventures of Larry Boy really didn't do well, and 3-2-1 Penguins did really well until it didn't. From a business angle, this was obviously a very big problem. Yeah, Veggie Tales was still a hit, but that wasn't enough to keep Big Idea afloat. Phil Vischer said that he personally blamed himself for the failure of Big Idea. He said that he regretted treating the show more like, well, a show rather than a ministry. That's exactly what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a ministry first and a show second. That's one of the reasons why a lot of parents had problems with 321 Penguins, because it was a show first and a ministry like 47th. And like I said, personally, for me, someone who's making his own Christian children's show, I can definitely see what happens when you don't follow that intended path. See, Lyle's great, and it definitely teaches the lesson well, but the heart behind it was not exactly that. Still, I think that the product it made was great. It's just that behind the scenes it was kind of a warning sign. This wasn't the only episode to have this, but, I kind of see it the most in Lyle. So Lyle is both a great episode and a warning for anyone who wants to make children's media out there. Not even just Christian shows. You gotta stay with the focus. Go with the mission statement. You have the original idea for the show, and stay with it. Otherwise, you're gonna go off the rails and your show's gonna become something that it definitely wasn't. While yes, this is more prevalent in Christian shows, it's still in mainstream ones too. But enough about that. I think I've hammered that point in quite enough. So from a humor aspect, a lesson aspect, and a warning aspect, I think that Lyle the Kindly Viking is really something special. If you grew up with Veggie Tales and want to reminisce, this is probably the best episode to do it with. It's got the most for you as an adult, and hey, if you got some kids in the room, that's a bonus. That way, when people walk in on you watching it, you don't have to come up with a crazy excuse about why you're watching it. That's always a plus.
Well, folks, thanks for watching the video. What'd you guys think? What do you think of Lyle? What's your favorite episode of Veggie Tales? Comment below and let me know, because I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Because oh boy, when we get to next time, well, let's just say it's gonna be big.